Right. So today we're going to be deep diving into something that is pretty crucial for any bonsai enthusiast.
Yeah.
Picking the right pot for your bonsai.
Absolutely.
Like, what's the first thing that should be going through your mind?
Well, the first thing you want to think about is that the pot is really like a micro environment for your bonsai.
Okay.
It's got to provide the right conditions for the roots to grow, but also aesthetically it needs to kind of go with the tree's style.
So there's that balance between the health of the tree and then also how it looks aesthetically.
Exactly.
But with so many different pots out there,
Yeah.
how do you even start narrowing it down?
Well, a good place to start is with the material of the pot.
Okay.
There are two main types. You'll see unglazed and glazed. Unglazed pots are usually made of clay, and they have that really sort of earthy, natural look.
Yeah. They're also porous, which means that they allow for air circulation to the roots. But that also means they can dry out faster.
So if you have a tree that likes to be on the drier side, maybe unglazed is the way to go.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What about glazed pots?
Glazed pots are great because they offer a much wider range of colors and finishes.
Sure.
But the glaze makes them less porous, so they retain moisture better.
Okay.
Which could be good for trees that need consistent moisture.
Yeah.
But it can also lead to overwatering if you're not careful.
So choosing between unglazed and glazed kind of depends on the needs of your tree and maybe even where you live. Like if you live somewhere really dry, maybe unglazed would just dry out too fast.
Exactly. And of course, personal preference plays a part too.
Yeah.
Some people just love that rustic look of unglazed.
Yeah.
Other people love the colors and the sleekness of glazed pot.
And then you have, the plastic pots.
Yeah, those are interesting. What's the deal with those?
They're great for beginners because they're super lightweight and really durable.
Practical.
Yeah. The downside is they're not generally seen as aesthetically pleasing as clay pots.
So it's like function over form.
Kind of, yeah. So we talked about material. What's next?
Next up, you want to consider size and shape.
Okay.
Really important for the health and the visual balance of the bonsai. Let's start with size. How do we know what size pot's right for the tree?
A good rule of thumb is that the pot's width should be about 2/3 the width of the bonsai's canopy.
Okay, so you don't want it to be too big or too small.
Right, exactly. It's all about balance. Now, pot depth is where it gets a little trickier.
Okay.
Deep-rooted species obviously need a deeper pot to accommodate those roots, whereas shallow-rooted species, they do better in a shallower pot. So a good rule of thumb is to choose a pot that's about equal in depth to the diameter of the trunk at the base.
Oh, interesting.
So that gives the roots enough space to grow without being too crowded.
What happens if you go too small or too big?
If it's too small, the roots get constricted and the tree can't grow properly.
Oh, okay.
And if it's too big, the soil can hold too much moisture, which can lead to root rot.
Makes sense.
Or the tree just might not be able to absorb the water efficiently.
So it's all about proportion, finding that Goldilocks size.
Exactly.
Not too big, not too small. Right, and what about shape? I mean, there's a lot of different shapes out there.
Yeah, you'll see all kinds of shapes. And different shapes can actually complement different bonsai styles.
Oh.
Like, for example, if you have a cascading bonsai that drapes over the edge of the pot, that would look really cool in a deep rounded or oval pot.
Yeah.
Because the shape of the pot kind of echoes the movement of the branches.
I see.
Like it almost frames the tree. And just like picture frames, there are certain shapes that are considered more traditional for bonsai pots. So like for a formal upright bonsai with a straight trunk and symmetrical branches, you might choose a rectangular or square pot.
Okay.
Those shapes kind of emphasize the vertical lines and they give a sense of stability.
Gotcha. So we've covered material, we've covered size and shape.
Yeah.
What else is there?
Well, next let's talk about color.
Okay.
The color of the pot can really make a difference in how your bonsai looks overall.
That's where it gets kind of tricky for me personally because there are so many color options.
Right. And it's subjective too.
Yeah. So what are some like general guidelines to keep in mind?
One approach is to think about contrast.
Okay.
So for example, a tree with really vibrant fall colors might look amazing in an earth-toned pot, or even a glazed pot with a contrasting color.
Oh, I see. So it kind of makes the colors of the leaves pop even more.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when a photographer chooses a background that makes the subject stand out.
Right.
And then for evergreen bonsai, a pot that complements those deep green hues can create a really serene and sophisticated look.
So you don't want a pot that clashes with the colors of the tree or makes it look dull.
Exactly. It's like choosing an outfit.
Yeah.
You want something that complements your features.
Right.
Not something that clashes with your skin tone.
All right. So we've done material, size, shape, color. What's next?
Next, and this is a really important one that people sometimes overlook, is drainage.
Ah, yes. Drainage.
Yeah.
Very important.
Bonsai pots, because they have a limited amount of soil,
Yeah.
they really need excellent drainage to prevent root rot.
Yeah. I've learned that the hard way with other plants, too much water can be just as bad as not enough.
For sure. So when you're looking at pots, the first thing you want to check is that it has drainage holes.
Makes sense.
Usually multiple holes are better than just one big one.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I've also seen some bonsai pots that have little feet on the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
What's the purpose of that?
Those feet do the same thing, right? They elevate the pot and improve airflow.
Gotcha.
And it stops the roots from sitting in water.
So it's all about creating an environment where that excess water can just drain away. Is there anything else we can do to help with drainage?
Well, the type of soil you use is really important too.
Oh.
Bonsai soil is usually a mix of inorganic components like pumice lava rock or akadama,
Okay.
and those provide good drainage and aeration.
So it's not just your typical potting soil you'd buy at the store.
No typical potting soil holds too much moisture for bonsai.
Gotcha.
You want to use a specialized bonsai mix that lets the water flow through.
So the pot and the soil, they kind of work together to create the right drainage environment.
Exactly. It's all about creating that balance.
Yeah.
So the tree can get the water it needs without getting soggy.
All right. So we've covered material size, shape, color, drainage.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other aesthetic considerations?
One thing you might want to think about is the age and maturity of your bonsai.
Oh, interesting.
A younger tree might look good in a more simple pot,
Yeah.
while a more mature bonsai might need something a little more ornate or aged looking.
So the pot can kind of reflect the stage of life the bonsai is in.
Exactly.
And I imagine the color can play into that too, right? Like a brighter colored pot might seem more youthful, and then more muted colors might convey a sense of age.
Definitely. And even the texture of the pot
Oh, yeah.
can contribute to that sense of age.
Okay.
A pot with a rough weathered surface would look good with a bonsai that has a gnarled, ancient-looking trunk.
So it's about telling a story with the whole picture, the pot and the bonsai together.
Exactly.
How do we translate those artistic concepts, like masculine and feminine qualities, into practical choices when we're looking at pots?
Yeah, that's an interesting concept, isn't it? It comes from traditional Japanese aesthetics, and it can actually be quite helpful when you're trying to choose a pot. Imagine like a juniper tree, rough bark, dramatic deadwood. It has this rugged masculine energy about it.
I see it.
So a pot that would complement that would be something deep, angular, maybe with a strong texture, something earthy.
So we're echoing the character of the tree in the pot.
Exactly. It should feel cohesive. But now let's say you have a flowering cherry. Delicate branches, very graceful. That's more of a feminine energy. You wouldn't want to put that in a big, heavy, angular pot.
No, it wouldn't fit at all.
Instead, you might choose a shallower pot, something rounded with a smooth, delicate finish. It should reflect the gracefulness of the tree. You know, we covered like the basics of bonsai pots, but there's a whole world of specialized pots out there.
So tell me more about these specialized pots.
Well, let's start with training pots.
Okay.
These are mainly used, when you're first developing a young bonsai or for trees that need a little extra help with root development.
So it's like bonsai boot camp.
You could say that.
Yeah.
They're typically deeper than like a regular bonsai pot, and they often have straight sides. This gives the roots plenty of space to grow and spread out, which is really important for the tree's health and vigor.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You got to build a strong foundation.
Right, exactly. And then you have those bonsai, with really unruly roots.
Oh, yeah. The ones that need some taming.
Exactly. And there's actually a specific type of pot for those.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are those called?
Root pruning pots.
Root pruning pots.
Okay.
What makes them different?
They have slotted sides or sometimes even like a grid at the bottom.
Interesting.
And this design, it basically forces the roots to grow outward and branch more finely. So you end up with a much denser and more intricate root system.
So you're kind of like manipulating the root growth.
Exactly. It's a subtle but powerful technique.
Very cool. Now, I've even seen bonsai displayed on like these beautiful flat rocks. Those are considered plots too.
Those are called rock plantings, and they're absolutely stunning.
They're gorgeous.
The rock itself acts as the pot,
Wow.
It provides like a really unique and dramatic setting for the bonsai.
I bet it's tricky to get the bonsai to grow on a rock. How does that even work?
It involves carefully attaching the bonsai's roots to the rock using a special soil mixture. Sometimes they use wire or mesh to keep everything in place.
Sounds like a delicate process.
It takes patience and skill, for sure, but the results are incredible.
They are truly amazing. All right, so we've been talking about all these different types of pots, but let's step back for a second and consider the history and cultural significance of bonsai
Oh,
pots.
absolutely. Bonsai pots have a really rich history, you know?
I love that.
It's closely tied to the art of bonsai itself.
Makes sense.
In the early days, bonsai pots were very simple, just functional containers, right? Just something to hold the tree.
Yeah, but over time, they evolved into these intricate works of art.
So the pots themselves became part of the artistic expression.
Exactly. And different cultures and regions developed their own unique styles of bonsai pots, each reflecting their own aesthetic preferences and traditions.
It's amazing to think about how something as simple as a pot can have so much cultural meaning. So what are some of the key historical influences on bonsai pot design?
Well, Chinese bonsai pots, also known as penjing pots, they often feature really intricate carvings and elaborate decorations. And they're often deliberately aged to give them that antique look.
I love that weathered look.
It adds so much character, right?
Yeah.
And then Japanese bonsai pots tend to have a more minimalist and refined aesthetic. They emphasize clean lines and subtle details.
So it's all about simplicity and elegance.
Exactly. They often feature like a unique foot or an unglazed rim.
It's fascinating how the designs reflect these cultural differences.
The pots really tell a story, you know?
Not just of the bonsai they hold, but also of the cultures and traditions that shape their creation.
I'm honestly blown away by how much depth there is to bonsai pots. Okay, so let's try to bring it all together. I'm imagining myself standing in a bonsai nursery, surrounded by all these amazing pots. What are some practical things I can do to narrow down my choices and actually pick the right pot?
Okay, well, it can definitely be overwhelming. So just remember those key elements we've been talking about. Start with your bonsai style. Is it an upright style? Cascading? Something else entirely?
Right. Each style kind of has its own thing going on.
Exactly. And that should guide your initial pot choices. Like you said before, a cascading bonsai would look amazing in a tall, narrow pot, to really showcase that dramatic flow. But a formal, upright style might need something totally different.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So then think about the aesthetic, Do you want that masculine look or feminine? Rough and unglazed, smooth and glazed.
And again, that decision should be based on the tree itself, right?
Absolutely. A rugged, powerful-looking bonsai would look great in a masculine pot, whereas a delicate, elegant tree would really shine in a feminine pot.
Awesome. Okay, what about materials?
Right. So unglazed clay, that's classic, beautiful, traditional, but it dries out really fast. So that means more frequent watering. Glazed clay that holds moisture better. And then you have plastic, which is super durable, but maybe not as pretty.
So many options.
It depends on your lifestyle, how much time you have for watering. And of course, size and depth are super important. Remember the 2/3 rule.
Yeah, the pot should be about 2/3 the width of the bonsai's canopy.
You got it. And then the depth of the pot depends on the root system. Deep-rooted trees need deeper pots. Shallow-rooted trees need shallower pots.
Okay, I think I'm getting the hang of this.
Now for the really fun part, color and decoration.
Yeah, this is where you can get creative.
Exactly. You can really express yourself. But remember, the goal is to complement the bonsai, not compete with it.
Right, you want to use color to create contrast or harmony, and the decorations should just add a little something extra without being too distracting. It's all about finding that balance.
You said it perfectly. And of course, last but not least, don't forget about those drainage holes.
Those are essential.
Absolutely essential. They're crucial for preventing root rot, which can kill a bonsai.
I know some folks are probably thinking, okay, general rules are great, but what about my specific tree? Let's get into some examples. Yeah, see how this all plays out.
Let's do it. Let's start with a classic. Japanese maple informal upright style.
So first off, the tree itself. Delicate branching, beautiful fall colors, likes well-drained soil, but needs consistent moisture too. And then informal upright means it's more relaxed, not stiff and straight. Right.
Perfect. So considering all that, I'd probably go for a pot wide enough for its roots to spread comfortably. And since they like moisture, maybe a glazed ceramic pot or even unglazed clay, but a bit bigger to hold that water. And to match the maple's elegance, maybe a pot with soft curves or some subtle decoration.
Sounds gorgeous already. Now let's switch it up. Something tougher. How about a Chinese elm, windswept style?
Ooh, windswept, always a favorite. Dramatic, resilient. Now, Chinese elms, they're tough cookies, handle lots of conditions, even a little drought. And windswept, well, we're going for movement, like it's been battling the elements.
Right. So, gotta have a pot that can handle that vibe. Strong, stable. What comes to mind?
In this case, I'd probably go for something heavier, more substantial, maybe a rectangular or oval pot, Strong lines, simple unglazed finish, depth still around 1/3 the elm's height, but might go a bit wider, just to emphasize that broad base, give it that rooted feeling. Okay, so sturdy rectangle, simple, matches the elm's ruggedness. I'm seeing how the pot becomes part of the story.
Exactly. It all ties together.
All right, last one. Let's go tiny. Teeny boxwood, Shohin style.
Ah, Shohin. Miniature masterpieces. Gotta love them. Boxwoods are perfect for this. Slow-growing, dense foliage. They handle pruning like champs, can get super intricate.
So tiny tree, tiny pot, obviously. But what else are we looking for?
We're talking small. Maybe an inch or two across, same for depth. Delicate, understated, clean lines, maybe a subtle glaze. Round or oval would probably work best with the boxwood's foliage. And since Shohin are often on stands, you want it to look good from all sides. All right, so it sounds like choosing the right bonsai pot. It's not just about one thing. It's a whole process.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all this incredible information. This has been an amazing deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much.
It was my pleasure.
And to all of our listeners out there, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of bonsai pots. Happy potting, everyone.